on business continuity. Now, today we are coming up with a mobility, business mobility with the Apple product. So thank you. So we'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes more. So maximum participants can join us, and then we'll quickly start our session. So we'll just wait for 2 and 3 minutes, and we'll start a session. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I think we should start. Yeah, Dhaval, let's start. Welcome everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Devang Modi from iValue, and so glad that all of you are joining us today afternoon. We really welcome your presence on this webinar. We are going to try and keep this presentation deck to not more than 30-35 minutes so that we can spend more time on Q&A or understanding if there are any particular questions or queries that you may have. I am also joined by my team members today, Dhaval, Chirag, Varun, and Pratiksha, and we look forward to interacting with you more on this particular webinar that we are hosting today. Of course, since the start of lockdown, it has been a difficult time for all of us, and what we have utilized this time in is basically creating a more outreach program to reach out to our friends, our clients, our prospects, and share with you about different topics that we've been covering so far. So we've covered business continuity, we've covered cloud, we've also covered on education challenges and the opportunities for the education community. And we are now kind of moving towards a little bit on in-depth towards specific solutions from particular OEMs. Like today we are just covering the Apple ecosystem, especially for businesses. And when we look at the overall perspective of what we have been doing in the last 2 months, each and every one of us in this webinar, we have really been dependent, absolutely dependent on the devices that we have at our disposal. And maybe you may have been part of the Apple ecosystem or the Android ecosystem. It doesn't matter. These devices have really been the ones which have helped us connect to people, communicate, run our businesses remotely, work from home, and all the sort of challenges that we have faced. in these lockdown period. So without further ado, I'm just gonna move ahead with the presentation. So as I said, we are happy that you could join us today. Our team, basically, iValue is an Apple enterprise partner. We've been working with Apple in the B2B space for over 6 years now. We cover clients' requirements pan India, and we have a number of projects which we have delivered across the country for some of the largest pharmaceutical companies, some of the automobile giants, manufacturing as well. We have currently over 35,000 plus devices in the Apple ecosystem, which we have deployed, ranging from iPhone, iPad, and Mac. And we are the #1 mobility partner for for the western part of India for Apple. We offer app development and consulting as part of the entire solution bouquet for Apple. Some of our marquee clients in each and every segment are some of the names that you would recognize. And as I said, we've done a number of projects which are pan India. So for pharma, of course, every pharma company is spread across the country. So we serve them in different geographies across the country. We have automotive clients like Mercedes and Audi. So Mercedes, majorly all the Mercedes-Benz dealers across the country, we are serving them. We have GSTN, which is the nodal body based in Delhi for your goods and services tax. We also have the banknote paper mill, which is basically the company which manufactures the notes that we use. And then in education as well as in IT, ITES, and some of them in very large scale manufacturing. So ONGC is one of our biggest customers on the Mac ecosystem. Within ONGC itself, we've got more than 2,500 Macs working across Gujarat asset. And so these are some of the technology partners other than Apple that we work with. So specifically in the IT infrastructure, of course, it's Apple, Dell, HP, Microsoft, names which you would already be aware of. When it comes to mobility, we offer solutions from VMware, Jamf, Force Manager, and of course, collaboration and communication, which has been the heart of the business in the last 2 months. We offer Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Adobe platforms for collaboration. And on cloud, we are partners with AWS and Azure, which are the two of the largest cloud service providers. And we offer solutions around cloud computing, cloud hosting, and cloud migration. And then we have G Suite, Office 365, and Symantec security solutions on the cloud. So this is just to kind of give you a brief introduction about our organization as well as our services and how we have connected with Apple in a very strong manner. So this is kind of a key message for the entire presentation. So we all understand that technology has already been part of our lives for many, many years, part of our businesses, also in terms of education now. But overall in our life, if you see, there is a monumental shift in how we do everything on a day-to-day basis. And some of the examples which basically are the key jargons in business today, you might be hearing IoT, which is Internet of Things, you have cloud, you have big data analytics, you have artificial intelligence, machine learning, very, very instrumental in today's world, augmented reality, business social, so social media that we use particularly for business use, and eventually security. So when you look at the entire gamut of things on this slide, these are all critical to our businesses. These are all critical to how we are strategically planning investments in technology for our organization, whether we are a simple marketing organization, whether we are a manufacturing organization, whether we are a tech organization, or we are a fintech organization, for example. Everywhere you will see retail, augmented reality is very big in retail. Everywhere you see all the technologies that are there present for the business ecosystem are all thriving on one single fulcrum, and which is all around user experience. So whatever product you're using, whatever technology you're using, and whichever industry segment you belong to, as long as you are giving an experience which is by far a compelling experience for the user, an enriching experience, an engaging experience for the user, you will really not be doing justice to the business that you are in. So when you look at it from an experience perspective, it's the Apple ecosystem, which is the choice of Fortune 500 across the world, or you look at the ET 100 across India. And these are multiple examples of how an Apple product or an Apple ecosystem has touched lives in many different segments across the world. Whether it is airlines, where you now see pilots mapping the entire journey, looking at the load factor, weather reports, everything is on iPad, and you would possibly see, not now, but you would have probably seen pilots walking in with really big, heavy black suitcases into the cockpit. And this is now replaced by just a thin and light folder, which has this iPad and has everything that they need. And if you look at the medical science technology, a lot of patient care, a lot of examination is happening on devices which are able to give a very clear and precise information about uh, a number of patient analytics solutions. So a lot of these medical device companies interact with our devices that we use on the iOS ecosystem. And if you look at in agriculture, for example, a lot of agriculture technology is now taking the best use of mobile, as well as augmented reality, Internet of Things, and machine learning, to really create a new wave of agricultural improvisation in the world. So as you can see, there are n number of examples on the screen where you're able to deliver different aspects of a business, whether it is into innovation, whether it is into engineering, whether it is into medical research, it is into customer service, or it's just into big data analytics. In every way, you will find that the user experience is so consistent across all of these devices, that is exactly what pulls each and every business user into putting an investment in the Apple ecosystem. And when we look at the products that Apple has, one of the key messages that you would understand is, for Apple, the product itself is the hero. So they really you would never see Apple advertising with big names or celebrities. They call their product as the hero. And the reason is because these products are designed with absolute user friendliness, user experience, a great sense of ownership of the product, and seamless consistency across each and every platform, whether it is the Mac OS, the iOS, the Watch OS, which powers the Apple Watch, or the TV OS, which goes onto the Apple TV. Across all of these diverse platforms that Apple has, there is an inherent user experience quality which is beyond any other competitive platform in the market. So all of this basically brings a lot of confidence to any large organization, any small and medium enterprise that we talk to today. And this is a quote from the CEO of Capital One, Frank, and where they have deployed iPhone, iPad, and Mac devices. And they believe that they are helping unleash the imagination of people at Capital One, and which is why they are making that investment. So we all understand that in today's world, while there are a number of choice of platforms available to us, when you look at it from a user simplicity, a user experience, a secure environment, it is the iPhone, iPad, and Mac devices which really bring that to the fore. And from the and before I hand it over to Dhaval, from the context of the generation of new hires that we are getting now, or the new employees that are joining our teams now, you look at the millennials, as we call them. They are the ones who are able to utilize these devices and these ecosystems to the fullest, because they are inherently born with a digital DNA. They understand this ecosystem much better than somebody like me, for example, born in the early 70s. This has created a huge impact in organizations who are looking to hire the millennials, because they want them to be able to provide the best devices, so that the user experience, the employee experience, is so great that employees really do not ever think of leaving the organization if they are really getting everything that they want in a job. And innovation, or you can say the ability to create something new by way of their own imagination, is really fostered very well with the Apple ecosystem and the devices. So with that, I want to just bring Dhaval into the fray. Dhaval, if you could just take over and take the participants to the next course.
Sure. Thank you, sir. So, of course, so we have seen up how the Apple products are been benefiting the business perspectives. So, what are that things where each and every prospect business get benefited? So, if you look at about the user experience, when your employees or your workers are using the products, how it gives a user experience that would be so initiative. It's having enterprise grade security, so your data remains secure uh, across on the platform. So that is how your data will be secured, so compatible with existing system. So if you have any your business applications, you have any business services, that will be compatible with your existing system as well. Then about the deployment. So when we see the products in the business perspective, it is very important to deploy seamlessly with your organization. So how it can be easiest deploy, and it can be managed streamlinedly on your business perspective. That is what these products it gives the experience. And of course it is cost effective and very simple to support, and the best platform for apps. So if you look at it, the app store application for your business, that would be number of apps are available on the platform as well. So we'll just quickly go through how these products and platform are really helpful for the business, and how it can be more engage and more initiative for your users. So we'll just quickly go to the next slide. So if we talk about all the mobility products which Apple having, it gives a better intuitive user experience when if you are user using iPhone or iPad or a Mac. So that same experience you will get in each and every product line. So let's say if you are using if one of the user are using an iPhone, and they are very familiar with the iPhone, and that inbuilt apps like a Safari mail application, that same experience you will get on the MacBook Pro and the iPad as well. So if your user are using a Safari on the iPhone and he just migrate to the Mac, so the same user experience he will be getting on the Mac as well. So the built-in apps are give the same experience on each and every platform. So that's how it gives a familiar and easy to use of if you are using any mobility products. So if we look at it on the next slide, where the products gives you a creative way. So creative ways to express your ideas. Let's say if you are having some creative people who are creating some designs for your products, or maybe if you look at some architecture, so they can do a for their own hands creative on the iPad or with Apple Pencils. So they can design with their own hand. They can create amazing content with the iPad and with this mobility products. So that's how they can express and the sales idea with the help of this kind of devices, of course. And we next we look at next slides, please, sir. Okay, so this is about how they can create content on the iPad and the Apple Pencil as well. And this device is, if you look at iPhone, iPad, or Mac, and these all devices are work seamlessly across. Let's say if you are starting your if you are writing a mail on your Mac, and you just need to go at somewhere another place, so some same mail you can just continue with your iPhone. So that's how that each and every product are working seamlessly across the device. If you are using an iPhone, if you are using an iPad and Mac, so there are many continuity features which are works seamlessly across the devices. Let's say if you are if you are having iPhone and Mac, and you got a call, so you can definitely pick up a call from your Mac. So that's the continuity features. So these devices are across working seamlessly. Next slide, please.
All right, so Dhaval, just to add on the last two slides, one was about, where you could use a device like an iPad today for creating something new, whether it is using an application like AutoCAD to create a model of a new house or a new factory, or using Adobe Photoshop to create new designs, graphical designs or fashion designs. The sheer fact that the device itself is today faster than a normal PC, the power of the device is absolutely equivalent to a desktop PC, and that grade of user experience or that grade of performance is coming to you in a handy device. It makes the life much more easier when you want to look at the most demanding or the most heavier graphic applications. And the example of how to work seamlessly across devices, if any of you have already been experiencing that, if you are using a iPhone and a Mac, for example, you would have seen that you would have never had to think about, do I really need to back up my photos? Do I really need to take care of my contacts, whether my contacts on the iPhone are automatically available to me on the Mac or not? It is just absolutely seamless. And this is one feedback that we get from all the users, that once they are on this ecosystem, once they are on this simplistic architecture, they really cannot go back. They cannot really come out of it, because that's the kind of engagement that the device ecosystem provides to you.
Yes, of course. So that is something about the experience. So when we talk about the security, so you'll get security in terms of each and every product. So the security level will be having from the system level to the apps and to the data as well. So if your data is resting on your device, or maybe your data is transiting on your network or on the public network, that also can make sure that that will be transiting through a secure protocol. So that's how you can rest assured that your data is very much secure on each and every devices on the Apple ecosystems. So if you look at it, that they have the security on basis of the hardware. We all are know about the security of Touch ID, Face ID. On the software level, on the services, each and every level, they have the security. So these products are considered with the security. So your data must be on the on the secure devices. Yes, next, please. Of course. So this is very important when we look at it, this mobility products. So most of the questions comes up whether that will compatible with the business application or not. So each and every product, if you look at it, iPhone, iPad, or Mac, these all products are works with any kind of a business applications. If you are business are using a Microsoft Exchange mail server, of course, that can be integrated with any of the products. Now, SAP also has been available on the Mac platform, where you can utilize the SAP accounting system for your business. If you are working on the G Suite, if you are your creative peoples are working on Adobe Shoot or a Coral Draw, these applications are also been available on the Mac platform. So this is nothing like there are lots of things that the questions comes up. Some of the apps which are not compatible or which is not working on this Apple Mac ecosystems. So now there are many of the apps are available. If you look at MATLAB, that can be also available on the Mac platform. So any of your application, any of your business apps work seamlessly with the Mac. And if you look at it for the integration part, if you are having any services like we just talk about the Exchange services, you have calendar services that can be also integrated with seamlessly with all the mobility product devices. If you have enterprise wireless connectivity or VPN connectivity, that can be also configured or can be integrated with this Apple mobility product devices. And of course, the identity. So identity is just we can say if you have Active Directory kind of integration, that can also be integrate with the Mac Apple ecosystems. So this is something about seamless integration, which is definitely can be work seamlessly on Apple mobility products.
So the key message here is the fact that you could be already using diverse platforms in your organization or in your business. And so the question would be that would we really be able to include the Apple devices or the Apple ecosystem into an existing IT infrastructure landscape? Yes, you can. And the classic example is that, you know, Cisco is one of the world's leading network technology providers, and many of the larger organizations have a Cisco Wi-Fi. And so if you look at the Apple devices and the Cisco partnership that Apple has, uh, your devices understand that they are on a Cisco network, and the network devices understand that there are packets coming from an existing Apple or a Mac or an iOS platform, and they are able to prioritize them. They are able to secure them much faster than any other competitive platform. So that's key to having the confidence that compatibility and integration are not going to be challenges that you would face when you want to integrate diverse environments, maybe a mix of Windows and Mac or Android and iOS, for example.
Yes, of course. Now, the major concern comes up with the device management. So when we look at on the perspective of larger scale, so how this device can be managed. So we'll just normal in normal trend, what will happen. So if we look at it, the when the device has been purchased, so that will come to the that devices will be delivered to your location, and that devices then will come to IT department, and then IT will upload the device images, and they can restore the applications and of whatever the standard configuration has been loaded up, and then those devices will be given to the users. And of course, that devices, it doesn't have the user personalization. So this is a general trend which we are having in our daily businesses and other products, how we are managing the devices. When we come to the Apple products, when we come to the Apple ecosystem, how this device has been managing, I'll just quickly take you through one example, which is a zero touch deployment, which comes with the automated enrollment into MDM. So I'll give you example. One of the user has just maybe if your company has procured devices, so it doesn't require to get into the with the IT team. So all the configuration, all the apps getting installed through the automated enrollment. So over the gear, this device will be configured, and user will have the unboxing experience, which is the best experience in Apple products, to unboxing a product, which is a wow experience, of course. So that your user can definitely get that experience, and the IT team doesn't really need to touch the devices. And in current scenario, which we are looking at, COVID-19 situation, which is very difficult to move from one place to another place, where this kind of solution definitely will get help into the automated enrollment setup. So if we look at it on perspective of the traditional way, where we have seen that we have to purchase the devices, that devices come to the IT, and that IT will configure or upload the images, and then after those devices will be delivered to the users. When in Apple mobility product scenario of or maybe if you can you think if you can say in Apple ecosystem, the scenario will be completely different. So employees will choose and place the order directly, so that products will be shipped to the each and every users. Let's and that users will unbox the devices, and it will be automated and personalized devices. So here the IT team doesn't require to touch a devices, or he doesn't include to get into to configure the devices. So the user itself just authenticate that enterprise login access, and immediately the device will be configured. Of course, there is a role of mobile device management, which comes to play a role in this complete cycle, and it can be happen. So that's how with the Apple mobility products, your device can be managed streamlinedly, and it can be managed over the air. So that's how the device management will work, and that can seamless your process for your IT department. And of course, it will save your 1 to 2 hours averagely. It saves your 1 to 2 hours of your IT uh, teams manpower working kind of things. So that's how it gets benefited for your businesses.
So let's look at a current example. In this situation right now, most of the people are working from home. They are isolated. They really don't have access to the IT departments or the IT engineers. And so in this situation, if you were right now to, let's say, empower 100 or 200 of your employees with newer devices, what is the plan that you will execute? It is absolutely impossible with another ecosystem. But within the Apple ecosystem, what Dhaval means to say, when you give a choice to an employee, that you as an organization can have a catalog of products which you have already shortlisted, you have already negotiated the rates for, and you are now ready to accept request for requisition notes from your employees. And once they place it, you only need to place the orders to your vendor. The vendor can directly ship to your employees, and in the whole process, the IT admin sitting in the back end somewhere working from their home can simply provision each and every of these newer devices. These devices get shipped to the employees locations directly. They have the unboxing experience, and the moment they unpack or unbox the device, they start up the device, connect to a network. Automatically the management and the provisioning profile is installed on that device. So it takes care of the entire IT's part of provisioning and loading an image or loading a custom configuration on those devices, making the devices secure and in your control. It all happens flawlessly over the air, no physical or no human touch required, which is why we call this process as zero touch deployment.
Okay, so it's time to take a poll. We had in your screen, you will just get pops up questions. So we would like to answer the question, and we'll wait for 30 seconds.
So the question is, what are you most excited to know more about in today's session? And it's a multiple choice question, so you can select 4 of them. It is definitely something that we would look for in terms of your response. And yes, we can see the votes have started coming in. We'll give it another 10 seconds for the participants to be able to respond. Okay, so we're just going to end the poll now. Okay, thank you for your responses. Let's go to the next slide. This is a very interesting and an important piece that we wanted to cover in the whole presentation, and this is where we bring in what is called as the total economic impact of if you were using, for example, a Mac ecosystem product from the Mac family, and if you were to deploy it across your organization, what are the benefits that you can get. And this is an independent study which was done by Forrester. They were not solicited to be creating a more favorable report, but this was an independent study that they performed. So look at the four major areas or aspects of building an effective business case of why your organization should look at an Apple ecosystem for its business use. So understand the IT impact, which we already covered. Look at the business impact, which we started off with. Understand the risks and uncertainty that comes with a product which may have a shorter lifespan. For example, if you buy something today and the next year it is no longer supported in terms of updates or OS upgrades from the OEM or the manufacturer, which tends to happen a lot in the Android ecosystem. What are the uncertainties and risks that brings with it? And what's the overall strategic impact, right from employee engagement, employee retention, productivity, efficiency, growth of business, and all of these aspects. So to look at an effective business case, when you analyze it from these four pillars, you would actually come to a study which is similar to what Forrester found. And what is the total economic impact? So when you look at it, each and every pillar, so IT costs and cost savings. So what is the amount of money that you're spending in procuring a new product, and what is the cost saving it is bringing in terms of a return on investment and the total cost of ownership? What is the business impact? So which covers basically user efficiency and business effectiveness. So are you really getting into a platform which is bringing the best of the newest technologies, the newest apps, the newest ecosystems to your business, and which is helping you to create a much more effective business organization? And what is the risk and uncertainties that I said? So how do you plan the risk mitigation strategies in case if there is failures, in case if there are any security breaches, and what is the risk versus reward criteria? And look at the strategic impact, which is scalability. So you may start off with 10 employees today, scale it up to 100 employees, scale it up to 1,000 employees, and scale it up to 10,000 employees, and still limiting your entire IT admin team or IT teams to not more than maybe 5 or 6 people. And the reason is because the platform is so beautifully designed that it minimizes the involvement of uh, humans in the whole process. And the flexibility to be able to procure a device or procure a product today and have the faith and have the confidence that you are covered for the next 5 years in terms of all kinds of upgrades, updates, new operating system releases, and patches on the applications. So it adds a whole lot of impact to an organization. So when you look at it from the total cost of ownership perspective, you're only talking about the IT impact. If you look at it from return on investment, you're talking about the IT and the business impact. But when you look at it from a total economic impact, this is where all the four pillars really come into the play. And so when these four areas, when the survey was conducted in these four key areas, which is the support and operational cost, which is how do you deploy your IT and what kind of manpower is involved in that? What is the cost of acquisition of these products, and what are the software costs that you have to pay? What is the cost that you will invest in to protect or secure your organization and your devices? And does it really have an impact on the employee performance and engagement? So the survey basically came out with a result which overall gave a perspective that if you look at it from a 3-year perspective, so if you look at it from a 3-year perspective and comparative hardware cost was involved. So let's say if you were to buy a Mac which is costing, let's say, 90,000 rupees, and then you would take an equivalent Windows PC which is also costing 90,000 rupees, and then you look at it from the total cost over 3 years, looking at energy consumption, looking at the IT support that you need to provide, what additional peripherals are required, additional software is required, and then the residual cost of the device. So at the end of 3 years, what is it that your device can actually pay you back or give you back in terms of the residual values? So when you look at it from a 3-year perspective, this is what the study came out with, is that effectively a Mac owned for a period of 3 years is going to cost you approximately about 30% less than an equivalently configured and equivalently priced Windows PC. So that brings a whole lot of impact to an organization when they really want to evaluate what is the investment that they're wanting to make in the platform. And so if you see, there is a 50% reduced likelihood also of a data breach on a Mac. And of course, security incidents are very, very less. In fact, 90% is something which was stated by one customer, but on an average, any Mac user you pick up, they will never say that I have an antivirus installed on my Mac, because it is not something which you would really be requiring at all. And so that significantly adds to a customer testimonial, which is, when they looked at it from a security perspective, and their CIO was asked that as a result of moving to Mac in the enterprise, are you going to be able to provide a more secure workstation? And his answer was simply yes. And so from an employee performance and engagement perspective, 20% increase in employee retention for Mac users. So if you're looking to hire millennials, if you're looking to hire Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z employees, then you can be rest assured that if you provide them with a Mac or an iPad as a primary device, they are going to possibly be longer with your organization. And in terms of increase in sales for employees using Mac, it always is on the plus side. So when again there was another CIO of a large tech industry, and this is what he has to say, that when you actually separate cause from correlation, there's no doubt that an employee choice program is beneficial for the organization. So employee choice program is nothing but when you give the choice to an employee, saying that which is the platform you want to buy. Let's say this is the budget fix for a laptop or a device, and these are the choices available. More often than not, employees will choose Mac, and then they would be much more engaged and overall involved in the entire organizational's growth. So yeah, cost is a device lifecycle calculation, so which is definitely something which you would have understood from the Forrester TEI study, that cost is not the cost of acquisition of a device. The cost is actually the whole life cycle of the device, that you have to look at it from that perspective. Dhaval? So yeah, as I was saying, this is the overall cost of a device when you look at it from the life cycle perspective, the cost of acquisition, the cost of deploying the devices, and the cost of supporting those devices. And that is where the whole circle actually comes into play, not just the initial cost of acquisition, which may save you some money, but in the long run, it is going to be much more costlier. So when you look at it from the total cost of ownership perspective, so this is where you can see that the residual value, either through leasing or through resale, is going to actually add a lot of impact to your ownership costs. Also the deployment practices, so whether your IT teams are really need to be involved hands-on on-site to deploy these devices, it's going to be always a higher cost versus a zero-touch deployment. And in terms of support, what kind of support tickets are being raised, or how many help desk requests are being demanded by the employees, that helps you reduce your support cost over a period of maybe 3 or 5 years of ownership cycle. Okay, that brings us to the second poll, and let's just quickly run the second poll. Okay, so these polls actually help us understand your feedback, understand what is it that we can help you with. So we would be really pleased if you would take a few seconds off and just respond to the polls. And please keep those questions coming on the chat window, or if you have any pertaining question, please feel free to unmute and uh, pause us or stop us in the mid. We'll be happy to take on questions anytime. Okay, so good enough. Let's go. So this is where we come to the third topic in the presentation, which is about how does leasing a product be more beneficial than purchasing a product in today's world, which is full of uncertainty, which is full of unplanned moves that you really need to take in uh, pertaining to your organization or pertaining to reacting to a situation in the market, which as you know, we are facing today. Imagine you have 200 employees and you have just invested in the month of March on 200 new laptops or 200 new desktops, and you've actually bought those devices. Those devices are just there sitting and not even unboxed. And so what is the total impact of that kind of an investment on your cash flow or working capital versus if you were to have leased those equipment. So just to give you an example here, we are not taking too much of depth in terms of leasing here, but just covering two examples. So let's look at the cost of equipment like an iPhone 11, which is going to cost you 65,000 rupees. So if you were to lease that equipment over a period of 2 years, you would pay a quarterly rental of about 6,410. And in 8 quarters, you would have paid about 51,280 rupees in terms of the leasing cost. But 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 in essence, what you have done is you've kept that 65,000 rupees in your pocket. And when that 65,000 gets multiplied by 100 or by 1,000, it's a humongous amount of money that we're talking about. And if that money is invested in your business, where you are able to generate 25, 30, 40% of profitability from it, uh, and when you look at it from the operational expense perspective, this 51,000 which you have spent in OPEX in 2 years actually goes on your balance sheet as an expense. And so the total cost savings on a net leasing basis as compared to a capital expenditure is about 34%. And similarly, just if you were to look at the MacBook Air, for example, and this is where we also include the residual value in perspective. So if you were to pick up a MacBook Air for 78,000 rupees today, lease it for a period of 3 years now, not 24 months, but 36 months, with an average quarterly rental of about 5,300, which is just a little more than 1,500 rupees a month. You are actually going to be paying 63,000 rupees over a period of 3 years, still retaining that 78,000 with you in your pocket to reinvest in your profitable business, and still coming to a net savings of 37% on the capital expenditure, which you have essentially just uh, converted into a lease. Okay, Dhaval, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So in today's scenario, we are lots of inquiries, lots of things are coming up with the customized models. So if we look at about professionals who are working, who are designing, who are doing a production on the Mac platform, they require more processor in terms of might be required more graphics or might be required more memory. So now the Apple has introduced a CTO models in India with the Indian INR billing price. So earlier it is not there. We have to order back to back, and that will comes with the dollar pricing. But now in today we can order in India, and that will come with the Indian billing, and also your business can get benefited of the GST as well. So there are a few configurations, many configuration are there. If we will just look at it, one of the MacBook Air model, let's say MacBook Air having a 1.1 gigahertz Core i3 dual core processor. But if you require that is a quad core processor with the Core i5, and you are happy with the 256 GB storage and the 8 GB memory, but you require a quad core processor, so that can be possible now. You can order the quad core processor along with the 256 GB storage and with the 8 GB memory. So there are many of the configuration are there which can be customized, as per your need, as per your requirement, and definitely we can order that products for you, and that can be available to you with the Indian pricing, with the Indian billing prices. So we can customize, we can order a customized model in MacBook Air, we can customize order in iMac, and of course in the MacBook Pro series as well. So there are the customization can be possible with the processor. You can add on the graphics as per your requirement. You can add on the memory. So memory can be customized up to 64 GB, and of course the storage. So now the in a MacBook, the storage can be customized up to 1 TB. So that's completely on your choice, on your customization. That model can be available to you. So of course you can contact us to have pricing on the customized model and the availability as well. Okay, so we'll just take you through one or two case study which we had been transformed with the Apple mobility product. So that if we talk about a big pharma company in Gujarat who are having 1,000 more than 1,000 employees over the worldwide, and who are having an annual turnaround 800 US million dollar. So how they have completely transformed with this Apple mobility product. So we'll just look at it on the perspective of what are their key challenges before the Mac adoption. So when we start the conversation, so there are
okay, Dhaval, just 1 second.
Sure.
All I want to add is that we have just kept the client name confidential based on confidentiality privileges agreement that we have signed with the client. And so we have not named the client, but in a sense of the overall project, we are sharing the entire information that we have discovered with the client as part of their entire project.
Of course. So before the Mac adoption, what are they have the challenges? Of course, the higher vulnerability and security risk, which is there on the Windows platform, and the user experience, because when it comes to the productivity, when it comes to the users experience, that is very critical on the with the coming up with the functionality of the devices as well. So they have the multi-location IT spreaded accounts, and it is very complex to manage for their IT infrastructure, and the manpower are very dependable on the resources. And they have, of course, the frequent breakdowns on the devices where it loses their user productivity. So when how it can overcome from this kind of challenges, they have deployed almost over the we can say over the 100 iMac. They have deployed over 300 of Mac Mini, and of course there are a number of MacBook Air as well. So they have completely transformed their Windows platform from to the Mac platform. So this is what they have transformed with the Apple mobility products, as we discussed over the 100 iMacs. They have deployed a Mac Mini and the MacBook Air. So now we'll look at it how that after adopting a Mac platform, what are the outcomes from the Mac adoption. So of course they have the completely streamlined deployment across the 3 locations. So these 3 locations are geographically situated in different locations, and the deployment will be this streamlined, and the user experience and the productivity definitely it completely enhanced. And the management which we have discussed and before few slides, which is a zero touch deployment. So that is what can be possible with the AirWatch MDM. So AirWatch basically a third party mobile device management player where it can comes up in the role of the deployment. And of course the fluid asset management with the Apple Business Manager. So Apple Business Manager which comes in a play where enterprise can get benefited for the deployment of the device, where you can manage people with the manage Apple ID, you can manage the devices, and you can also manage the content. And of course, they reduce the user support request. So the IT team now can, what we can say, they can now focus on the other prospects where they can develop their business continuity. So this is one of the example where they have completely transformed their business through the Mac adaptability. So these are the some few pictures of their office or corporate office environment where completely you can see they have the complete Mac environment.
And just to give the right perspective, 3 locations and about 450 users in all are covered or supported by one tech engineer only. So there's only one tech engineer who sits at their corporate house supporting 3 different locations, geographically spread, and about 450 team members.
Of course. Okay, so another case study which I would like to discuss with all of you is that which is a government organization. So when we talk about the Apple adoption, we see many resistance in the government, but this is something very unique thing where the government organization completely migrates to a Mac. So I'll just quickly discuss about that. So there is an organization which is a Gujarat Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is a GERC. So it is based on the GIFT City, Gandhinagar, and we started up a discussion about the challenges which they are facing on their day-to-day activities from the IT perspective, from the management perspective, what are the challenges, and we come with kind of discussion of completely transform their uh, uh, complete environment, which is on the Mac environment. So when we look at it, the challenges from their perspective. So what are the challenges before the Mac adoption? So of course they would like to adopt a secure ecosystem because which is a regulatory commission. So their data is very important. So we would like to adopt a secure ecosystem where the data can be rest secure, the data integrity, which is very critical, of course, because ultimately it's a regulatory commission who are taking care of all the electricities issues which are coming up to regulatory. So that are they are taking care of that. So the data integrity was very critical, and of course the regional language support, because ultimately it's a local state organization. So the regional language support, which is very important, play role in that organization. And of course the open source environment required, as we know that in government compliance, which is the best initial part, which is the open source environment. So that is what also we had a challenge, and reduce expenditure on hardware and software upgrades. So these are the challenges are there before the Mac adoption. So after that challenges, we completely migrated to the Mac environment. So they have the 2 locations, one of the in GIFT City, Gandhinagar, and another is in Ahmedabad. So we have completely deployed the iMac products on their complete environment. And of course, the quicker user acceptance just completely drastically they change a learning curve. And regional support, of course, the operating system, even though Mac operating system, it gives a regional language support as well. So that's how that challenges also we overcome. And we already seen that system level encryption that makes sure that data will be secured on the device. And of course, that data we are backing up through on the Nest server, so they can make sure that data will be secured on the backup devices. So that's how we have overcome from their challenges. And here are some of the few images of their office premises where they have deployed completely a Mac environment. Okay, so here is last poll questions which will coming up on your screen. So request you to all of you please respond these questions that will be there for more 15 seconds, and then we'll come to a Q&A session where you can ask your questions, and we would like to answer all your questions and queries. Okay, so we are going to end this poll. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your responses.
So in a summary of the whole session, these are some of the key points that you can take away from this session. So every business today requires a strategic plan for mobility, whether it is in any segment of the industry today. You really need to look at security, performance, management, and return on investment as the key considerations when you look at a large scale deployment of devices and choice of platform. Measure the total economical impact and not just the cost of ownership. So that will bring you to the 4 strategic impact pillars that we had discussed. The leasing options are one of the most cost-effective options today in terms of not putting your money or not investing your money from your working capital or your cash flow. And device management is essential. So every implementation strategy must include device management as a key protocol. With that, we would just like to open up for Q&A, and if there are any questions around the session or anything that we have covered, please feel free to go ahead and ask the questions now. There was a question from Mr. Vikram Porwal. So Vikram, if you would like to unmute and ask a question.
Okay, meantime, he can ask, there is a question on the chat window as well. I would like to bring it up. So is migration from Windows to iOS possible now? Many organizations have this concern even if they want to migrate to Apple from Windows.
Yeah, so migration from Windows to Mac is definitely possible. And from when you evaluate from a perspective of Windows to iOS, so bringing your applications to the iOS platform, which now has 2 different elements. One is the one which goes on the iPhone, which is your iOS, and the other is the iPad OS, which basically is the newer version of the OS specifically designed for iPad to become a laptop replacement, to be capable of becoming a laptop replacement product. So yes, you can migrate many of the newer generation applications which are based on the web architecture, and applications which are not inherently designed for the .NET or the VB.NET platform. These are all the applications which can come onto the native Mac or the iOS platforms. Hope that answers your question, Vakul.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Vikram, if you can hear us and if you would like to ask a question, since you have raised your hand, in case if there are any other questions, we would be happy to address them now. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, if not, I think we are just in time for closing the session. We would really we appreciate your presence today. We are happy that you were able to join in the session today and hope you could have some takeaways from the session. So thank you once again for joining in, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you everyone for joining our today's session. And if you had any questions or queries, definitely you can come back to us, and would like to address all your queries. So thank you once again.
And yes, in case if you want to view this session again, it is on our YouTube channel. So feel free to go to our YouTube channel and access the session. This is the link for everybody on the chat window. This is where you can find the recording of the session. Thank you and see you.